looking at slides all day. But I'll share my screen and then we can jump right into it. And again, if you have any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to answer what we can here. I know we only have a short period of time here together. So if afterwards you have any questions you would like to ask me or speak about in, a little more privately, not in front of everyone, I will provide my contact information. I think my LinkedIn is available in the conference database, but you can also email me as well, and we can speak afterwards. So I'm definitely going to be available beyond just the half hour, 40 minutes that we have together. So today, welcome to It Just Makes Sense. I know everybody's so excited to talk about finances in the last part of the day. I promise I will make this as fun as possible. And we're going to talk about financial literacy skills that we should all learn in grad school. So a little about me, I know they just did a little introduction, so a little bit more about me. I'm currently the head of curriculum and the founding coach at a company called Parthian, and we are a financial education and coaching company. We have a kick-ass app on iPhone if you want to check it out. We also offer not only management tools to help you with your money, but one-on-one live coaching right in your pocket, which is kind of nice. Before that, I spent about a decade in financial services, more traditional roles like financial planning and advising. Before that, I have actually written 2 humorous personal finance books, if that's something you're into. And I did a TEDx talk on why I like to incorporate humor into teaching the fundamentals of personal finance. And most importantly, I am a former overworked and underpaid graduate student. So I feel your pain. Again, a little bit about my background and why I wanted to do this conference was I went to graduate school a little more than a decade ago, and I left with 6 figures in student loan debt. So I owned 2 things. The only things that I owned were my student loans that were 6 figures and a Toyota Corolla from 2005 that had 180,000 miles on it and a hole in the floorboards. So it was like a Flintstone mobile. And those were the 2 things that I left graduate school with. Fortunately, I was able to get a job that unfortunately also grossly underpaid me, but did allow me to visit the Boston Public Library during my lunch hour. And it was there that I began reading personal finance books because I wanted to answer some really important questions. My burning questions were things like, how can I afford a car that's not a death trap? How can I pay off $107,000 in student loans without cutting out food entirely? And how do I become Oprah levels of rich, ideally within 1 to 5 years? So those questions really were the impetus for my current career. And so I know what it's like to graduate from school and go out into the world and think, okay, I have this great education, but I still don't know how to invest and I don't know how to pay taxes. Very, very common. Personal finance really is an expansive topic, and how the principles are going to be applied in each of your lives is going to look a little bit different. So I want to give you just a few basic ideas today so you can really start to develop a plan for yourself. We're going to discuss these 3 things here. So developing a really simple framework and a financial system that you can automate. We're going to talk a little bit about managing your student loans, and we are going to talk a bit about evaluating and improving your money mindset. And I know these 3 topics seem like, wow, they're huge and very broad and probably not super related, but they are the 3 that I think can have the most impact on your life now, and the 3 things that you can really start to put into motion to improve your financial life as you finish school, as you move on and make more and more money over the course of your career. So those are the 3 things we're going to focus on. So first, creating a simple financial plan for yourself. And this is all about creating a system now so you can scale it later. And it's anyone can follow this, right? So the first thing you need to do is calculate your current net worth. And I want you to remember that your net worth is never, never, never the same as your self-worth. They are unrelated. Don't ever equate the two. Net worth does not equal self-worth. The net worth is simply a financial measurement that we need to take to figure out where we are today and where we want to go forward. And then someday looking back, you can see, you measure your progress. So it's really just taking a snapshot of where you are, and then it'll help us to measure big progress over long periods of time. So how do you do that? You are going to add up everything you own. So when I got out of graduate school, I had my Toyota Corolla, which was worth about $7. And I had about a few $100s in my checking, maybe a few hundred in my savings, and a Roth IRA that I probably had about another $10 in. So I added up everything I owned. And this is going to include checking, savings, investments, retirement, and the value of if you own any real estate or anything like that. Even your personal belongings like jewelry or artwork can be included in that. And then you're going to add up everything you owe. So everything from your student loan balance to, if you have a mortgage, the balance of that, credit card balances, anything you owe is going to be totaled up. And then you're going to subtract everything you owe from everything you own. And that number is your net worth. Now, for most graduate students, this is going to be a negative number. Again, I don't want you to be frightened by this. I don't want you to feel any shame or anything like that. It's super common. Again, this is just a starting point to know where you are today. It's very important to know, and it's going to fluctuate daily, but just to have a rough idea of where your net worth sits is going to help you kind of build forward. And again, doing this exercise is just going to help you understand what types of accounts you already have open, and then what types of accounts you may need to open in the future. The second step to this is, and this seems very elementary, but I assure you there is a lot of science behind it. And I know we got a lot of science nerds here today, so I'm very excited about that. You need to set financial goals. And you've probably heard of the acronym SMART. So that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. That kind of acronym is used in academia. It's used in different industries. So your financial goals should follow the SMART guidelines as well. And what this is going to do is help us provide clarity. What are we working towards? So every dollar, it's going to help us to have every dollar come in, give that dollar a job so we know exactly where it's going, whether it's going to pay a bill, whether it's going to a savings account or an investing account. It's going to help us not be aimless wanderers, basically. So what I want you to do is set short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals in this fashion. And the short-term goals are things you can achieve within a year. Intermediate are things you can achieve within 1 to 5 years. And then long-term is anything that's going to take you longer than 5 years to achieve. So things like retirement and all that. So, and then once you do that, once you write it all out, I want you to write small actionable steps that you can take for each. So for example, I believe your very first prioritized goal in any financial setting should be to fully fund an emergency reserve. So maybe you already have done this, maybe you haven't done this yet. Ideally, you want to have an emergency cash cushion, and we'll talk a little bit about why. But if you are going to create an fund my emergency account as your first goal, maybe you need to open up a savings account. Maybe you need to research some savings accounts. Break it down into the smallest actionable steps that you can take. And this is going to help you to not become overwhelmed. It's going to actually provide a lot of motivation. And the number one reason to set financial goals is that there have been studies that show people who actually write this stuff out are 80% more likely to achieve them. So if that doesn't tell you why you should do it, I don't know what will. So back to the emergency fund. I again, very general, this is educational, not investment advice, but I really like high yield savings accounts. I think they're a great place to keep your emergency fund. Ideally, you want to save 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses in an emergency fund. You can go higher than that if you're, I know we're kind of in a recession. There's been a lot of layoffs lately. So if you're worried about like job security or something coming up, you can go above that 6 months, but you're probably thinking to yourself, well, shit, that is a lot of money. 6 months of living expenses usually is a 5-digit number. And you're probably thinking, wow, how do I save that? That seems like an overwhelming amount to save. So what I would tell you is, again, break it down into small chunks. First, start by saving $1,000 a month, or I'm sorry, $1,000, and then move to 1 month of living expenses, then 3 months of living expenses, and then 6 months of living expenses. It may take you 3 years to be able to fully fund it, but this absolutely should be your priority, because it's going to provide a buffer and a cushion should something inevitably go wrong, and it will go wrong. A story from when I was a graduate student, I was very smart and took a trip to Las Vegas with the money that I didn't have. And I'm not going to say if it was alcohol related or not, but I did fall out of a cab and I broke my nose. And at that time, I did not have an emergency fund in place. So guess what? I had to pay for that little accident on a credit card. And this is where I really started to find that having an emergency fund of any size is helpful. So yes, if it costs you $3,000 to get over an emergency, but you only have $1,000 saved in your fund, that $1,000, yeah, it doesn't cover the whole thing, but that's $1,000 less you have to go into debt for. So this is going to provide, even if it doesn't cover the whole emergency, a much needed buffer. Number 4, manage your cash flow. I hate the term budgeting. Budgeting is such like a gross term, and nobody wants to talk about budgeting. Like if I said to my husband, can we have like a money date and talk about our budgets? Like that means like there's never going to be any romance in your life at all. Like it's a romance killer. Budgeting is not easy to stick with either. So we live in 2022, almost 2023, God willing. And I think you should stick with a tool where you can connect your accounts. So my company has spending tools. There's things like mint.com. You need a budget, good budget. There are tons of tools out there that are either free or inexpensive where you're going to connect your accounts, and you can do that in a safe and encrypted way. And your spending will be tracked for you. So you can see at any given time where your spending is trending, in what categories you're spending, and you can set some budgets. So or instead of budgets, I like to call them targets. So where you want your money to go, and you can start to set it up and get a real handle on it. So don't be afraid of the technology. It is super useful. There's no need to really spend, thousands of hours in an Excel spreadsheet anymore. Make this as easy for yourself as possible. So instead of setting, I'm only going to set a budget for $400 for dining out this month. I want you to turn that into a target, and you can use some general targets based on some really well-researched budgeting methods. So if you get out of school, I would recommend you start with a 70-20-10 model as how your cash should be flowing. So that's 70% to your living expenses, 20% to discretionary or fun or, whatever you want to do. And then 10% to saving, investing, and paying down debt. That's pretty ideal. You might not be able to hit it exactly right away. And then as you progress through your career, if you can slowly but surely get closer to 50-30-20. And what that is 50% to living expenses, 30% to discretionary, and then 20% to your saving and investing. Again, very general rule of thumb, but if you follow these methods, you're going to be in an excellent place. I promise you that. And we're going to talk a lot more about automating, but the first thing you should do is automate your bill paying. So, I have like my mortgage, my utility bills, credit cards, everything I have is automatically paid. I pick the dates I want them paid on, which you can do. And I don't have to worry about it. So I know I get paid on the first, and on the second, all my bills are getting paid. And then lastly, I want you to practice values-based spending. So whether that's the 20% in the 70-20-10 model or the 30% in the 50-30-20 model, values-based spending is spending on things that increase the quality of your life, bring you joy and satisfaction. And it's very simply spending more on what you love and less on what you don't. This is something that, in our society, we're not really taught how to do. But I want you to think about, when you leave here today, think about what you value. What do you love spending money on? And we want to make sure that with any discretionary income, you're maximizing those things and minimizing other things. So for me, that's going out to dinner with friends, or traveling, or paying someone to clean my house a couple times a month, because that saves me so much time. Those things to me are valuable. So practice values-based spending as much as you can. If you have credit card debt, I know most people have student loan debt. I had student loan debt, but that's generally not considered high interest debt. The fifth step in this creating a financial plan for yourself is creating a plan to pay off high interest debt, which is anything I would say over 10% interest. There is a method. We're going to talk a little bit more about debt repayment methods when we get to the student loans, but I like the avalanche method. You can Google that and figure out how to implement that in your life. It's basically paying off your debts from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. High interest debt is, if you keep it and don't work really aggressively to get rid of it, it's going to prevent you from building wealth. It's going to keep you in a hole. It's not serving you in any way, shape, or form. It has no purpose other than to make the lenders more wealthy. It does nothing for you, so get rid of it as fast as you can. Put in a plan in place. I do like the avalanche method. And then going forward, if you are using credit cards, just put on the cards what you can afford to pay in full. Just a good rule of thumb. And then, once you've got your emergency fund in place, your cash flow is looking good, you've got more coming in than going out, you've paid down your high interest debt. Now we can really, really focus on saving and investing for the future, and for specifically the goals that we set as step 2. And again, every dollar that you save and invest should be attached to a specific goal, so it's not just out there aimlessly wandering. A lot of people ask me, and again, I cannot in this setting at all give investment advice. So this is very much education only, but a lot of people ask me, should I save it or should I invest it? And I think the easiest way to think about it is, if it's for a short-term goal, so something within like a year, you definitely want to keep it in cash and save it, put it in a savings account, something like that. If it's an intermediate goal, so something that you can achieve in 1 to 5 years, if it's on the shorter end, if it's like 1 to 2 or 3 years, you probably want to save it and keep it in a savings account, or maybe like a CD or something like that. But if it's a longer period of time, if it's 3 years or longer before you reach this goal, then you can start to think about investing it. And definitely your long-term goals, so like your retirement, or anything that might be more than 5 years away, you definitely historically and statistically, you want to invest that. So that's kind of how I like to break it down. Obviously that's a huge topic that we cannot get into today, but lastly, automate. I am a big believer in this. Number one, it's going to prevent you from self-sabotaging. We are humans. We make impulsive choices. I know myself, I might have a glass of wine and start Amazoning. I know a lot of people do that. So we are prone to make mistakes. We are only human. So setting up an automated system will help you prevent being your own worst enemy. You will also be doing the right thing without having to think about it. You're going to spend less time on worrying and more time on what you enjoy. And you can automate almost everything in this day and age. So you should do your bill paying first, and then your savings and investing second. And then anything that's left over, you can truly then go spend guilt-free, because you've done the right thing already. So very powerful tool, both, just to have logistically and psychologically. Secondly, managing life with student loans. The number one thing I will tell you is that my student loans dominated my every thought for a decade, and I do not recommend that. So what I would tell you is to get a plan in place. I was going to say, find out if you qualify for student loan forgiveness, but oops, I made that slide a few days too early. My bad. So you may have heard that the courts have put a temporary block into this program. So it's kind of in limbo right now. There are still other forms of forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge that you should look into and know your options. There's also income-driven repayment plans. So really get a good handle on what you might still qualify for. But let's assume you're going to have to pay your debts down. So what do you do? So again, this goes back to, first making a list of all your debts. And this is as simple as on a piece of paper, in an Excel sheet, whatever you want to do. I want you to list every single debt you have, including student loans, including credit cards, including car loans or whatever, personal loans, anything you have. And then you really need to have this information handy. For me, when I first started this journey of paying down my debts, I didn't even know how to log into Navient or Nelnet. So first, get your login information. And then secondly, what I want you to do is to list each lender and the type of loan that you have. And then I want you to, on this list, write out the balance, the interest rate, the minimum payment, and then when it's due each month. Super simple information, but it's so important to help you get a handle on it. And then what I want you to do is choose the snowball or the avalanche method to pay down debt. Essentially, these are two very popular methodologies for debt repayment. It will provide a lot of a sense of feeling of control, that you have control over your debt. I found it to be super useful. So either the snowball, which is lowest balance to highest balance, or the avalanche, which is highest interest rate to lowest, whatever's going to work best for you psychologically. There are pros and cons to each. I'm, again, more than happy to have a further discussion with you, well after this. Feel free to book some time with me. We could talk about how to implement either of these methodologies, but pick one and go with it, set it up, and then, live your life. And then lastly, we'll talk a minute about evaluating, improving your money mindset. So this is kind of, think of it this way: just because your brain says you're bad with money, or you're telling yourself you're bad with money, does not mean that that's true. It just doesn't. So where does this come from? Well, turns out we have a lot of unconscious beliefs and some conscious beliefs that stem from our childhood. So everything, and this is, I recently read this, and I would highly recommend, if you are interested in this, in like behavioral finance and all of that, read The Psychology of Money. It's fascinating. I love it. And I recently read that everything we learn and now believe about money as adults, we learned by age 7. So it's kind of like horrifying to me that first grader Katie is having a real effect on adult Katie as far as my earning goes, my spending, my saving, and my investment decisions. Like, that to me is so wild that I just want to make sure that that this is everybody has this, right? So money scripts are, and our unconscious beliefs are called money scripts, and they are deeply ingrained. And then money scripts limit our financial choices. So whatever you believe, that's going to limit what you do with your money. So if you have certain views on, rich people are bad, or, those types of things, you're going to make decisions with your money based on that. And it really limits you. And then lastly, money scripts create a financial comfort zone. So we get very comfortable within the socioeconomic level we were brought up in, and extreme changes will make you very uncomfortable. So this is why we see lottery winners who suddenly get a lot of money. They statistically go broke within a few years, or why we see a lot of professional athletes, a lot of them who grew up in poverty and then get these multi-million-dollar contracts. I think the NFL statistic is 60, I believe it's 2/3 of NFL players are broke 3 years after they finished their playing career, even though they made millions. So, what is it about that? Is it that we feel that suddenly we have to take care of everyone, or we have to do everything? We're not prepared for it. So our money scripts are such an important thing for us to evaluate. Really take the time to think about it. For me, I grew up hearing, we can't afford this. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. And it wasn't until I kind of went into this current career path that I really started to evaluate these things. And it's a lifelong journey. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I finally am at this place where I feel like I've gotten over what I was taught as a child about money. And I have my own beliefs now. But then I started renovating a house, and I bought a house and I started renovating it. And all of a sudden it triggered all of these previous childhood beliefs about money, and a scarcity mindset. And it's amazing how this journey is not just something you can, fix right now. It's something you got to fix over the course of your lifetime. So money scripts affect everything, whether we know it or not. So what are the three quick things you can do to fix this? You can use mantras to tell yourself the opposite of your identified money scripts. This seems, again, very silly, but if you're telling yourself your whole life, oh, I'm bad with money, I'm not good with it, I'll screw it up. I want you to then, every purchase you make, whether you're buying a coffee or saving a couple of dollars, I want you to repeat to yourself, I am good with money. I am good with money. I am good with money. And you can do this, again, like I grew up thinking rich people are greedy and bad. And now I had to really consciously say to myself, not all rich people are greedy and bad. Not all rich people are greedy and bad. And you keep doing that and you're going to see an improvement. And then secondly, maintain awareness. So recognize when beliefs and thoughts arise, and they come up often, whether you are on a Target run or buying coffee or making a big purchase, whatever it is unbelievable how often these money thoughts pop up when you start to really be conscious of them. And every time one of them comes up, whether you leave Target and you feel guilty about your purchases after, I want you to question it. Why do I feel this way? And I want you to question the validity and truth. Where is this coming from? Is it true? Do I actually believe this? Why am I thinking these things? Start to question everything. And then remember, again, I equate it a lot to therapy. So it's a lot like, when you go to a therapist, you start to address why things in your past are affecting your present, and how do you work through that and improve that to have a better outcome in the future. Money and all things money mindset and all things financial, same thing, same exact thing. So you have to really sit down and think about, okay, what happened to me as a child regarding money and using a money lens? How does it affect me now? How is it affecting my choices with money? And then how can I work and improve this so going forward, I have a better financial outcome? Same kind of thing. So remember, it is, start small. This is not something that you are going to fix overnight. I'm still dealing with it every single day. It's a lifelong thing. So that's what I would do to, take away from today. You can start doing this immediately. Few last bonus tips. My best advice: don't let the student loans consume your life. I did that. It is not a great way to live. You'll end up wasting a decade or more worrying constantly about it. So put a system in place where you're paying them off, and kind of put your the 7 steps in place, and then go live your life. And I say this as someone who does finances for a living. Do not let money consume your life like that. Keep your financial life simple, organized, and scalable. So we talked about that, the 7 steps to a financial system. Once that is in place, you're good to go. There's this misconception that investing at a high level, investing for, to have great wealth is sophisticated and it's complex. No, it doesn't have to be. In fact, you think that because you've been told that as a way to gatekeep. it's, all these complexities, financial advisors pushing all this BS, saying, well, you need this strategy and that strategy and blah, blah, blah. For the most part, and I know this because I worked in this industry, for the most part, that's a form of gatekeeping. And just be aware of that. You can build wealth with a really simple system, really simple. Few index funds, a little bit of insurance, good cash flow, you're on the right path. And staying out of high interest debt, basically. Like, it does not have to be difficult. Don't let anyone tell you it does. And then good investing is boring. Wealth is built slowly and consistently, or inconsistently. You're seeing this right now with the crypto stuff going on. You're seeing this with a $2 billion Powerball. You're seeing this with the meme stocks in 2021. Everybody wants to get rich very quick and very as quickly as they can. But ultimately, what we know is that good habits and good and sustainable wealth is a very boring system that's just automatic and happening consistently and over a long period of time. I'm talking decades. So that's it. That's the trick to it. If you can do that, you're good to go. So I'm going to open it up for some questions with like the few minutes we have left. Again, I'll drop my contact information in the chat as well. But if you want to learn more about what I do and then my company as well, you can scan that QR code. But I'm going to now stop sharing and let's see here. If there are any questions, let me have it. And then I'm actually right now typing in my email. You can find me on LinkedIn, Insta, and Twitter. I know it's a little bit awkward to ask money questions in a very public setting, but so feel free definitely to hit me up if you want to have like a private conversation about your personal situation.
We have time for maybe one question. There's one in the Hoover app. What are some examples of high yield accounts?
High yield accounts, yeah. So if you go to bankrate.com, and I'll type that in there, really good website where you can find high yield savings accounts. So basically, high yield savings accounts are kind of a modern thing offered by banks who are pivoting online. They can offer higher interest rates. What I would look for is a reputable bank. Look at the interest rate, look at the minimum deposit requirements, and then look to make sure that it's FDIC insured. If it meets all those things, then don't overthink it. Pick one, and it makes it very easy to start saving in a very efficient way.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your expertise with us, Katie. I know I learned a lot. Unfortunately, we're now out of time, but thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I hope to hear from you soon. Don't be strangers. I don't bite.